Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Waterproofing Wisdom. My name is Ben, I'm the Technical Director of CLW, and this time I wanted to talk about the hidden risks of placing structural waterproofing design in the structural engineer's scope. And I wanted to give you an example. This is from many years ago, and I can't go into details, but I was an expert witness for a project that went very badly wrong in the Middle East. And after many hundreds of hours of reviewing and understanding what had happened, what went wrong, what it came down to most extremely was a water bar. And the water bar had been designed and drawn by a structural engineer from a major general engineering consultancy which no longer exists. And this water bar had been taken to the underside and up the sides and then over the top of culverts. And these culverts were fairly long and they had to have some movement joints in them, hence the water bars or the movement joints. And unfortunately, this structural engineer was a structural engineer and not a waterproofing specialist, and he took that water bar, as I say, under the culverts, up the sides, and then over the top. And the problem with all of that is this water bar on top of a culvert is never going to work. And a lot of people within the waterproofing industry would know that very quickly, but unfortunately this was a generalist engineer. The issue being that if you invert this, turn it upside down, the air can't get out from between these fingers or ribs, and that means that the concrete can't get in, and what you end up with is a lot of voids, and once that's underwater, a lot of water can come in. That's a very extreme example. The more common sort of things that we would see is just poor understanding of risk assessment, poor assessment of what grade is really needed where within a basement, more sort of nuancy things where an engineer thinks about hydraulic gradient in terms of where is the water table now, whereas we would think about, well, where could it be in the future, some of those sorts of things. And I guess I would want to articulate that a structural engineer in reality is unlikely to be a qualified waterproofing person. And I've taken this from NHBC's technical manual, and here it will talk about, the waterproofing design specialist should be appointed early, and it should be somebody who's got, for example, a CSSW qualification, or better yet, and on the scale of projects that we work on, really should be somebody who's on the waterproofing design specialist register that's held by the PCA, and that's somebody who's been through the training, been through a qualification to get the CSSW, and then later gone through a peer review process looking at 2 of their example projects. And that's something that we would have at CLW, and lots of other specialists within the industry would have. But it's very unlikely if you go to one of the major engineering consultancies, the person doing any of the waterproofing design is unlikely to have that qualification, or indeed anything similar. And whilst they're extremely well qualified and they will be a chartered engineer, that's not the same as being a chartered engineer and having done a deep dive on this and being examined on this and then being peer reviewed on structural waterproofing. So I guess my appeal is to structural engineers saying, hey, don't take something on if it's not your area of expertise, or if you're going to do that, take on some sub-consultancy advice. Or if you are a major developer and your project has a big waterproofing component in the basement, come to somebody like ourselves. And with that comes the niche expertise and the qualification. I do a lot of expert witness work, so I'm always learning from mistakes and seeing what goes wrong and trying to correct for that. And then also, I guess I'd really encourage you to recognize the value. So although we might cost how many tens of thousands of pounds, how much of that do you recoup through better tender processes where the main contractor isn't doing some risk mitigation and adding in a percentage for uncertainty? So there's my episode of Waterproofing Wisdom. If you ever want to get in touch and talk about basement waterproofing, please do. I'd love to hear from you.